You know, you don't have to be good to do something professionally. I'm Daniel Norton. I'm a photographer here in New York. This channel, I talk about my kind of inspiration and my philosophy of photography, and we do some tutorials and stuff as well. So if that's the kind of stuff that interests you, you might want to subscribe. But anyways, let me get to this. So what I'm talking about is the idea that what makes somebody a professional, right, meaning that they do it for money, is not the same thing that makes them good, or in the case of like photography and the arts, like creative. In fact, I would say, I hate to say this, but I'm going to say it, that I think if you just look at photography as a whole, there's a lot of photographers out there that do it professionally that are just not good. Not to say they're bad, but they're not good. They're not exceptional. They can deliver a properly composed and a evenly lit photo on demand when they need to, which is basically the definition, right? You got to meet the contemporary professional standard, like a minimum, you know. I talked about this before in a video about what professionals get paid for, which is really just delivering, right? But that doesn't mean that they're good, that they're creative, that they're pushing the edge, that they're trying something, that pushing the craft to the next level. And at the same token, you can be very good and do that stuff and not be able to make it as a pro. Because those two things, those two qualities, are not necessarily connected. Now, every once in a while, hopefully, probably a smaller minority, but the ones who maybe do the best in the long term are those that are both, right? That have the ability to, the pro ability, right? And then also the creative ability. So I'll break them down and we'll talk about how they combine. So basically, in order to do something professionally, you need to make it a business, right? You need to have the equipment or the means to get it. You need to put yourself out there as far as advertising and stuff and marketing. You need to be able to negotiate fees for people. You need to be able to do the work, right? You need to be able to follow up on the contracts to get paid. You need to pay taxes. You need to pay if you have employees, if it's a bigger business or any people you hire, you got to pay them. You got to maintain all of your paperwork for any kind of problems with the equipment and maintaining it and everything. So if you notice, that was like a lot of things I named, and only one of them was taking the pictures, right? Because being a pro or doing something professionally is a business, right? So those business skills, they are the thing that are generic, right? Like your ability to market for a photographer. Yeah, we have different little channels and stuff that we follow, but basically it's the same thing, the same way that anybody else markets. You know, you want to sell the sizzle, whatever. You need to get yourself in front of the right people. You need to show them what you're doing and entice them to hire you to do it for them, showing them that there's a need, right? You fill their need. They need a photo, you take photos, right? They need their house cleaned, you're a cleaner, you clean their house. They need a driveway put in and you're a driveway guy, you put driveways in, right? That's basically a pro, right? All that stuff, all those things that you need to run any business, and I'm talking about businesses here, is kind of generic, right? Again, there's different ways we're going to handle it as photographers. Maybe we'll do more specific videos on that. I know I promised a lot of business videos, so I'm going to try to do more of them. But basically, those things, right, that like baseline stuff is like to be in business for yourself. The making the photos, or fulfilling the contract, like actually getting the shots that somebody wanted, is only a small part of it. And to do it on a level that is professionally acceptable is actually pretty basic. When it comes down to it, if you're shooting, let's say, I don't know, a wedding, we'll say, or a prom, or some kind of event, right? Let's say an event. And they want pictures of people enjoying themselves. They want, maybe some pictures of like proposed portrait pictures. Most people don't actually, most people can't tell the difference, especially from like, the minimum professional standard up to about like 75% of what like leads you to being good until you reach that extraordinary level. Most people can't tell the difference. The reality is that if you put the flash on your camera and you take a picture of a couple at a reception and it's like a basic shot and it's exposed right, most people are fine with that. Like they don't necessarily care about kicker lights and additional stuff and that and this. They do if they see it, but they don't miss it if it's not there. In those cases where it's more like an open-ended thing, right? They don't necessarily see the basic stuff, right? If you can take it to the next level and do something really interesting and really over the top at events, like that brings you to the next level. So sidetracking there slightly, they're probably on his Instagram. So if you go to Seth's Instagram, if you guys know Seth, the last ex-witness, he does these, has done a few parties for Street Dreams, and they wanted him to do, set up like the photo booth. And most people would go in there and do it. Again, professionals would go in there and do it, and they'd set up some lights and it'd be fine and it'd be exposed. Seth kills it. He uses different colored gels and he has like a way that he does it. And it's awesome, right? This is that top margin of somebody who's like a pro and is good, right? But the reality is that if people didn't expect that, right? So when they see that, they're just like, what? But most people haven't seen that because most people at these places setting up photo booths are taking really boring, basic pictures. And that's okay. And that's what people are looking for. So there's that market for like the not great photographer that just can do the business. And I think actually what's interesting about this is before, this isn't even that long ago, but before the internet became the primary way that people marketed for photography, and before digital made it so that more people could embrace photography and get into it, I think a lot of your event/portrait people were terrible photographers. I mean, I remember seeing photos when I was coming up, back in the film days and back when like there was portrait studios, right? That's the people that really did it. They were mostly just not very good. They were literally just people that invested in a business that had like a formula that worked and gave you a proper exposure. And those pictures were boring and kind of crappy. Honestly, they were better than what you could take yourself with the flash on your camera. But any creative photographer could do a much better job. They just didn't have the reach because there was a huge amount of money involved in starting a business back when in the film days, and you didn't just have it out of, I mean, a lot of wedding photographers worked out of their homes, but they had like a studio in the garage or whatever. So like there was a huge upfront investment that I feel like people don't expect anymore today. I think a lot of times, being that things have become more casual, a lot of times you're going to people to shoot portraits. So with a nice digital camera and a small lighting kit, that's all you really need. An Instagram account, a Facebook account, a YouTube account, these are all free to set up, and time. You can actually start a business, right? So the people that are good at shooting and not great at business are actually able to kind of move forward. So I think we're actually going to get this changeover where more and more pros will be good, but I still think you don't have to be, Because the problem is that most people that are really good at one thing are really good at that one thing, right? So I might be really good at, playing pool, but I'm not necessarily really good at poker, right? So everybody's good at different stuff. So yeah, you can multitask and be good at a lot of different things. I mean, I do and have done almost everything for my business. I'm a photographer, clearly, that's my main business, but I've made my websites, I shoot my own videos, which I guess is similar to photography, but I do marketing and stuff, and yeah, I can do it. I am not an expert. I mean, I know that people on YouTube are supposed to tell you they're the best at everything so that you can follow them and want to be like that. Well, no, they're not, right? Everybody's good at something. Most people that are YouTubers that are really good and have big channels are great at YouTube, not necessarily even what they're really talking about, right? They're just good at the YouTube part of it. So you look at it like that, like I'm basically a photographer and I can do some other things. So when it comes down to it, if you're like a really good photographer, you might not have huge success professionally necessarily, right? Even with it being easier, because you got to put the effort in too. Because a lot of having a skill, part of it I think is innate, and that's probably another video. But a big part of it is just doing it. If you want to, there are people that can pick up any musical instrument and just start playing, and they can pick it up like really quickly. Other people it takes time, but anybody who sits down and spends the time can learn how to play, and they'll be able to play. So if you are just really good at photography and like doing it, you can learn to do these marketing things, and you can start to make money, and you can build a business. So I think to a certain point, I think then at that point where your Instagram feed is like people are throwing you jobs and whatever, at a certain point though, if you really want to actually take it to the next level, you do need to step back and treat it more like a business. But at that point, maybe you're already having success and you're going to learn, right? So being really good at photography, of course, has to do with your vision, right? Your style, knowing like what defines you and what makes people want to look at your photos, and kind of having a unique perspective on some level, right? Again, that's not necessarily the same thing that does well in business. And in fact, a lot of times, because sometimes you probably hear me say in my personal work, like my work that I shoot for myself, a lot of times is much different than what I get asked to do for clients. And even though those clients have seen my other work, They'll be like, oh, I love what you did with blah, blah, blah. And they'll be like, oh, but I just need this plain shot. And that's fine. I mean, you get hired because you're creative. They want to work with creatives, right? But you got to be able to deliver the boring stuff too. But a lot of clients, they only need the boring stuff. So if they see boring photographer and they're a better business person than you and they're throwing up lots of advertising and they know how to work the marketing or whatever, they become known as this like great photographer in the area. And in fact, they're really not a good photographer. So it's really kind of interesting. I think part of it comes down to the fact that we don't necessarily know if it's outside of our craft. We don't necessarily know if it's good or bad. You know, like when we're looking at something, we know what we like, right? And we know what the standards are. But until you see it, I mean, if you remember, I guess people watch Netflix, you watch old shows now, but if you look back at some like old TV shows, they were terrible. Like the way they were shot and the way that they're structured. Like TV has become amazing in the last like, I don't know, 10 years or so, maybe a little bit more. Like where shows started to become more cinematic and, really started to change the way TV was. But before that, we were content to sit there in these like very boring, sitcom style things. And they were funny to watch or whatever, but like, they weren't nearly as interesting as like some of the shows that come out now that are like the way they're lit and the way they're shot and the way, I mean, not to say that all TV is good. Clearly it's not. I don't even watch that much TV, but this, there's things I've seen. Like some of the Netflix shows and stuff are just really, they're pretty amazing when it comes down to it. And that was a whole sidetrack. I don't know where I went there, but anyways, the point being is that things are changing. And I think that while I'll make that statement, and I still think it's true, you don't need to be good to be a professional, I think hopefully that's changing, right? So you people that are out there that are good at photography and don't feel like you're good at business, learn a little bit about the business, right? Get out there so that we get better and better photographers, because the more great photographers that are shooting, the more photography itself gets respected as an art. And, you'll stop seeing all those memes about like, you don't want to pay me. People will pay you if they respect it, and they'll respect it if good photographers are the ones that they see as pros, and they don't hear the constant story of, oh yeah, my wedding photographer did okay, but like my friends took better pictures. Yeah, that's because that wedding photographer is actually a better promoter than they are a photographer. So if you're a good photographer, get out there and do it. If you're just a good business person, you're an okay photographer, improve your craft, right? And hopefully that's why you're watching these kind of videos and you're on YouTube. So, we're all just kind of growing together. In any case, let me know, guys. Do you think that you're good at what particular part of the business do you think you're good at? If you're good at the business at all, do you think you're good at like certain marketing aspects? And if so, like what? Maybe give like a little piece of advice. If you can throw a little statement in the comments to help somebody, a little tidbit of advice from somebody that's good at business, that's had some success. And if you're just a good photographer and you want to learn, what do you think you're missing in the business end that you want? And I will try to make some videos about that for you. So anyways, if you'd like, please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.